Far be it from me to sit here and brag and say, I told you so, but well, I told you so. In fact, I told you this 24 hours ago, one day before Jimmy Dore made this astute observation. I told you the exact same thing.
Ron DeSantis, Trump's Trump. He topped Trump by 23 points among Republicans in a new poll. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis leads former President Trump by 23 points among Republicans in a hypothetical GOP presidential primary, according to a poll released Tuesday. This just in, DeSantis already won the hypothetical primary, which of course means absolutely nothing. But we want to set up a great establishment pick now. That's what this is. So the establishment does not like Trump. They'd much rather have DeSantis. And that's what this is. DeSantis is their boy. He's going to do whatever Wall Street and the military-industrial complex says.
What can I say? When you're right, you're right. And I am absolutely right about Ron DeSantis. Let me be clear. I like Ron DeSantis. When I was live on the air in Orlando, Florida, I helped get Ron DeSantis elected. But let's be crystal clear. DeSantis did not move Florida further to the right. Florida moved him further to the right. Florida has had a long history of establishment, quasi, run-of-the-mill GOP-style governors. Charlie Crist, who's now a Democrat. Jeb Bush, Rick Scott. And Ron DeSantis was right out of that same mold. He was conservative on the things that made him palatable to the conservative movement, but of course, he's going to do what his handlers tell him to do. Remember, his background is military. He was a JAG attorney. That means two things. Number one, he was really good at getting our officers out of hot water when they were in violation of other countries' laws and rules, which means he knows how to go with political leaders behind closed doors and cut deals. And who knows what's being traded in those deals. But also because he comes out of the military-industrial apparatus, he knows how to take orders. And you don't get to the level that he got to simply by merit. And I'm not taking away his abilities. I'm not taking away his intellect or his way of getting a job done. But even in the military, you don't climb rank solely on merit. You climb rank because you know how to do politics. And it is politics. And politics is really about asking for favors and then guaranteeing payment on favor once service has been rendered. That's the political world. And the reason that the establishment political world hates, loathes, and despises Donald J. Trump, he doesn't do that. He doesn't operate that way. That's not who he is. He is not only hated by the Democrats, he is hated by establishment Republicans. He is hated by the establishment, period. They hate him. And they are now all in, and it's plain as day that their pick is Ron DeSantis. And again, Ron has done some great things in Florida, but not necessarily because that was his idea to. As I said yesterday, and so we're going to have a refresher today, in the very beginning of the pandemic, he was going along with every other libloon governor in this country. They all saw themselves as 50 little individual czars and dictators that Donald Trump wasn't going to tell them what to do, and it was lockdown hammer time. The first one, Governor DeWine of Ohio claims to be a Republican, but he's really a rhino. And a rhino is nothing more than a Democrat dressed in Republican drag. They're transitioning politically. And he was the first governor in the country to shut the schools down. I mean, he out-Cuomo'd Cuomo. He out-Newsom'd Newsom. And then, of course, it became this competition in the beginning between Cuomo you whiner, and Gavin Newsom, who could be more radical. Oh, and then you got to throw Gretchen Whitmer, the Wicked Witch of the West, over there in Michigan. Finally, when there started to be some primary heat applied to Governor Whiner, he backed off everything. But Ron DeSantis was in that mix too. In the very beginning of the pandemic, he shut down the schools. He shut down the beaches. He mandated masks must be worn outside. And what happened? Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne of a big charismatic church in Tampa refused to close his church. He said, if Walmart can be open, I can be open. Amen, brother. I stayed open during the pandemic, refused to shut down. And when we were open, we didn't do every other pew. We didn't do any of that. And any mandates or ordinances that our community had in place ended at our doorstep. If you didn't want to wear a mask into our services, you didn't have to. And I certainly didn't make the worship team and people who were singing or doing things on the platform wear a mask. I never saw anything more ridiculous and ludicrous in my life. That's a personal observation. But the churches in Florida were closed. Rodney Howard-Browne, 5,000 members, refused to close. And on live television, being carried around the nation, there he was, being arrested and handcuffed by the Florida State Police and let out of his building. And you know that the handlers of Ron DeSantis ran to him and said, this is bad, 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 bad optics, bad everything. We can't have this. And that was when Ron DeSantis had his come to Jesus moment. And he took the shackles off the churches. He reopened the beaches. And remember, you had that one state representative walking around in a Grim Reaper's outfit up and down the beach. You say, Ron DeSantis is killing you all. Go home. And they didn't go home. It was beach time. And Ron DeSantis gained political clout and momentum, basically being the Donald Trump of Florida. He kept things open. Now he's going after big pharma, and he wants to open up a full inquisition into, people that are suddenly dying, and how is that related to the love potion number 9 and the mandates, etc., 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 etc. And, good for him on all of that. But again, that's the people behind Ron DeSantis, his handlers now. If he were to become president, he'll have different handlers. Handlers that represent the establishment. Handlers that represent the oligarch. Handlers that represent the political, military, industrial complex. Period. Period. He will not be what he is right now, because what he is right now is what the handlers he have right now want him to be. Take Donald Trump. Love him, hate him, loathe him, despise him. Hold him up as an iconic hero. The one thing about Donald Trump, and he's done some things that sometimes I've shaken my head saying, why are you doing that? Like his big announcement today, which is basically a sweepstakes where you can play golf with him or get a phone call, which to me seems kind of just tacky and tawdry. Like, stop degrading yourself that way. But love him or hate him, the one thing you cannot deny, nobody owns him. Donald Trump, at the end of the day, is going to do what Donald Trump does. Now, what he says he's going to do, he does. He says he's going to build a wall, he does. He says he's going to end this, he does. Says he's going to do that, he does. He really, to his core being, is a patriot who wanted to make America great again. And the establishment hates him because they cannot control him. It's no more complicated than that. And yes, they will be able to control Ron DeSantis. Now, there's also another scenario at play here. And that is, set Ron DeSantis up to be what it takes to take down Trump once and for all. And then if DeSantis in any way shows any signs of not being willing to cooperate and play nice in the sandbox, they're going to take him down too. And trust me, he hasn't got anywhere near the grit and the moxie to fight back and stand his ground like Donald Trump has. So this will all be very interesting to see how this all now pans out. But I told you, Ron DeSantis is the establishment pick. Make no mistake about that. He is the establishment's pick. This is who they want. What'll be interesting to see is what does Donald Trump do? Now, first of all, I don't believe this polling. This polling is absolutely inflated by the rhinos and the never-Trumpers. So we shall see. I mean, right now the optics are definitely in Ron DeSantis' favor. He is a sitting governor, and he can, from a position of power, I mean, he says now he's going after Big Pharma and everything that happened during COVID. Now, that is certainly raw meat to the hardcore conservative group, myself included, the Trumpers, the MAGAs. Yeah, we want people like Fauci and Big Pharma held accountable. And right now, Ron DeSantis is willing to lead that charge. And though Donald Trump wants to do those things, he's not in a position of any power or authority to be able to do any of that. So the optics are in DeSantis' favor. And so what remains to be seen is, in Trump, does he know how to put together a strategy where he keeps moving his campaign forward, which captures the heart and the minds of the American people again. Remember, when Trump ran the first time, even though the mainstream media blew him off as a joke and a clown show, he ran on substantive issues, and he talked about them. He talked about things no other candidates were talking about. And though the media tried to paint him as a clown show, he was not. And it resonated with the American people, and in overwhelming numbers, they voted for him. My fear is that right now, especially with this little stunt about, play golf with Donald Trump, it's like, don't become the clown show. And don't go on your endless attacks against Ron DeSantis. Lay out your agenda, what you are going to do, because the one thing that you do, Donald Trump, better than any other president we've ever had is you know how to make the economy rock and roll. And that is numero uno, number one on the hearts and minds of people right now. How can we afford gas, groceries, keep a roof over our head, and feel like we're not losing ground financially, but gaining ground? You need to hit on that hard, every single day. And you need big vision, big picture, big program on that. And in time, don't panic. The more the media covers Ron DeSantis, at some point, they'll get tired of the choir boy act, and they will start dealing dirt on him. Because again, even though right now they favor him over you, they certainly don't favor him over Kamala Kamala thinks she's a Hottie Harris. So just breathe, move your campaign forward, stop talking about 2020, move your campaign forward, do some big things. You need to do something right now, though, and not just campaign and give speeches and have rallies. You need to actually do something. I don't know what that is, but you need to be doing something. Somehow right now you need to champion something that you force either the Congress or even the state legislature there in Florida or some state somewhere. You need to get somebody somewhere to do something that you get to take the victory lap on. something significant that the American people immediately know, oh yeah, Donald Trump, if we just get him back in that Oval Office, he can make things happen. Because see, right now, Ron DeSantis as a governor can create that illusion that, look, I can get things done. I can make things happen. And right now, Mr. President, you're only giving speeches and interviews. The American people need to tangibly see you get something big done. But Ron DeSantis, don't sell your soul to Ron DeSantis. Now listen. He's better than the typical rhino candidate, but he is no less the establishment pick. We just had former Speaker Boehner break down and cry at the Nancy Pelosi goodbye tribute dinner, and he gave her a big hug. You do understand, and I've said this for years, it's not about left versus right. It's about right versus wrong. It's them versus us. It's not Republican versus Democrat. They all play on the same team. They can come out on cable news and do their little mock fights back and forth, and as soon as those cameras go off, they go to the same parties, they drink at the same bars, drinking the same cocktails, and they're all in it for themselves and each other and the power and the positions that they all hold. Just like I said yesterday, Mitch McConnell is the one that made sure there was no red wave because he did not want pro-Trump senators in the Senate, period. And he's willing to sacrifice the party and the country to see that happen. You really want to pick in the next president? Don't let the establishment ram it down your throat. It's DeSantis, it's DeSantis, it's DeSantis. Wait. Watch, breathe, and for God's sake, have a scintilla of loyalty. Remember what Donald Trump did get accomplished. And that was in the face of 3 years of Russian collusion accusation that they all knew was complete bullhock, and yet they spent millions and millions of taxpayer money on special counsels and hearings and an impeachment fraud, knowing full well it was all concocted, made-up bullhock, and Donald Trump stood his ground and still got things done. First 2 years of his administration, the Republican Congress didn't work with him, Paul Ryan, but he still got things done. Imagine what he could do with a Congress actually on board and a political party not working against him. For God's sake, you, my viewers, my listeners, have some stinking loyalty. Don't just, lightning rod. Yeah, and what? You don't think if Ron DeSantis were to get the official nod that immediately like that, the media is going to turn and absolutely you're going to hear things about Ron DeSantis, and what if, unlike Trump, they are true? Because the way the deep state manipulates and controls all of their members within the deep state, if you've ever seen the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise, have a piece of dirt, a piece of blackmail on everybody. That way you get them all to behave themselves, or you'll, quote, expose them. Remember Trump's attorney general that immediately recused himself from getting involved in the Russian collusion? And Donald Trump said, what are you doing? Makes you wonder, what did they have? What did the deep state have on that attorney general? Was it video footage of him, doing unmentionable things to barnyard animals? Remember, DeSantis was part of the deep state. He did deep state bidding. He got promoted as a result of it. But there's something in the closet that they use to hold over his head that if he ever decides to go rogue and independent, they, the establishment themselves, will take him down. So don't start the coronation just yet for Ron DeSantis.